I'm Shifali Gidwal and you're watching ConsultEase with ClearTax. In this video, I'm going to discuss the important recommendation by GST Council in their latest meeting. Some of the recommendations are related to the tax rate, exemption, the withdrawal of exemptions, but in this video, we are not going to discuss those. We will be going to discuss the procedural changes, which are also very important. So, we can divide all of those changes into 4 or 5 slabs. Like some of the changes are related to the e-commerce operators, some changes are related to the inverted rated supply, very litigative matter of GST since its beginning, and some changes are related to the interest on input tax credit, again very litigative matter. And then there are some changes related to the GST tribunal and the export refunds. So let us start with the first one, that is the e-commerce operator vendors. So there are the vendors who are supplying through e-commerce operators, and as per section 24(9) of CGST Act, those people are restricted from making any supply without taking a registration. So there are various criteria to mandate a registration under the GST. In some of the cases, there is a threshold limit of turnover. So once you cross that particular threshold limit, only then you are responsible to take the registration. It may be like 20 lakh or 40 lakh in some cases. But there are some cases where you are required to take registration even if you are not making a ₹0 sale, right? So this was one of the case, the 24(9), that is as for it was for the vendors of e-commerce portals. So they were required to take registration even without any threshold limit, and that was the reason any e-commerce operator will not register you unless and until you are entering your GST number. So now there is a waiver, although a waiver was already available to this, but now this will be incorporated formally into the law, right? So now you can supply the goods through an e-commerce portal, but you're required to take registration if you cross the threshold limit. That is a normal threshold limit, first thing. And second thing is, you cannot make any interstate supply, because under the GST provision, in case I am making any interstate supply, I am liable to take registration even without any threshold limit. And the second change for e-commerce portal vendors is that now they can also opt for the composition scheme. So earlier in the composition scheme, they were restricted to take that scheme, but now they will also be eligible to take composition scheme. So they will be liable to make the payment of tax at a lower rate. And but there will be some terms and conditions to that. A separate scheme will be announced for those people, and also they can opt for the composition scheme only if they are making the intrastate supply through the portals and not the interstate supply. Next, so the next change is related to inverted rated supplies. So we all understand that in case of inverted rated supplies, we are eligible to claim the refund of input tax credit, that is accumulated input tax credit, because the tax rate on sales will be less than the tax rate on purchase. So input tax credit will always accumulate in that particular case. So there was a provision in GST to give the refund for that particular supply, but from the inception of GST, this was a litigative matter because the government said that we will not consider the input services for input tax credit in this particular concept, but the taxpayer wanted that input services should also be included in the definition of the input tax credit. But now they have said that they will change the formula under Rule 89(5), and now input services will also be included. So this is one way to deal with this particular matter. Also, what they are doing, they are rationalizing the tax rates so that there will be no inverted rated supplies in the GST. So for the future, they will abolish all the sequences where there is any inverted rated supply. So they will increase the tax rate in those particular cases, or if something is sold at very low rate, what they will do, they will increase that particular rate. But for the time being, they are also changing the formula for this particular matter. Next change related to the refund. So some months back, in fact, they incorporated a provision, and then they said that if there is a fraudulent supplier, in fact exporter, or there is a risky exporter, so what they will do, they will stop their refunds, they will just restrict their refunds in case of exports. So they restricted their refunds, but they just completely forgot that it was for a time being kind of thing. So you were just required to check their documents in detail, and then refunds were supposed to be released. So even if somebody is a risky exporter, you cannot withhold their refunds for the entirety. You will ultimately have to do some kind of checking or do some kind of inspection or whatever you want to do, but finally you will have to release it if the documents are complete and if they have actually made an export. So in that case, they have said that okay, they will consider those grievances of those kind of exporters, and now those cases will be referred to the field officers, and now their refunds will also be expedited and will be released very soon. Next provision is related to the erroneous refund which was released to the exporters. Again, it's for exporters, and it was the refund of input tax credit. Now the department is asking that refund back with the interest and penalty because it was an erroneous refund. But the concern of taxpayer is that even if I will refund that amount, how my input tax credit will come into my input tax credit ledger, because there is no such provision in the GST and portal specifically, right? So now there is a form prescribed for this, so you will be required to pay that amount through that form, and your input tax credit will be revealed in your input tax credit ledger. It will be set back into your ledger. So that was related to the exporters. And the another issue was whether the interest will be charged on the input tax credit which is just availed or availed and utilized. So they just clarified it, and they said that okay, it will be charged only when it is utilized, and which was very fair also. So now it is being incorporated into the law. There was a clause in finance bill, and now so generally when a provision is required to be notified, the date of being notified is assumed to be the date which is written in the notification in which it is covered, right, or when it is published in the official gazette generally. But in this particular provision, it will be assumed as deemed as a notified from 1st July 2017 retrospectively, that is since the inception of GST itself. So this is the first provision which is getting a retrospective effect, and but now we can expect a lot of notices from the department for to the taxpayers regarding interest on input tax credit, because generally till now they don't send any notices for the input tax credit interest, or if they are sending, they are very less cases of that. But now we can see many sequences for those kind of cases when they will be sending the notices for interest on input tax credit which is wrongly utilized. The next provision is related to transfer of amount in electronic cash ledger of one distinct person to the ledger of another distinct person if it is required. So that is also being notified. It was already introduced through the law. Another important issue which is more on a litigative side, I mean which is more relevant for the people having litigation in the GST, is the setup of tribunal. So from like 4 years of GST, 4 or 5 years of GST, everyone is demanding that please form the tribunal for the GST, but there is no tribunal. So the finance minister has assured that very soon they will take initiatives to set up the tribunals in GST. So these were the important changes other than the rate and exemption related changes, which I will be going to cover in the separate video. So with this, I would like to close this video. Thank you so much, everyone.